Hello, everybody. It is an immense pleasure to be with you today for our Environment, Social and Government session. For those who don't know me already, I am Susana Gomes-Smith and I'm here today as the INSEAD International Directors Network Ambassador. The network has members who are certified in corporate governance by INSEAD through the completion of the International Directors Program course. I'm also a non-executive board member of Fleantech, a fintech and financial services specialist in structured products, investment and saving solutions, quoted in SIX, Switzerland, and also a non-executive board member at CTT Bank, a retail bank here in Portugal. No doubt ESG is already important and it is set to become increasingly central to our businesses. Assets in sustainable investment products in Europe are forecast to reach 7.6 trillion euros over the next 5 years, outnumbering conventional funds. On the other hand, corporations that are ESG conscious are seen by investors as less risky. Also, as you know, there is a legislative agenda and EU provides a classification system for sustainable activity and also standards for ESG reporting. Since 2021, in March, there are mandated ESG general disclosures for financial services sector with level 2 requirements becoming in force from January 2022. With us today, we have an excellent panel, José Leitão, Managing Director in Santander Group, who will share his knowledge on ESG ratings and methodologies, Ludovic Risset, Country Managing Director for Danone Portugal, Carlos Dias, Chief Sustainability Officer for SAP EMEA South, Marco Nola Harvey, VP Strategic Engagements for EMEA South in SAP, João Paulo da Silva, CEO of EMEA SAP South and also CEO for the African French-speaking countries. And finally, we will also have António Neto Silva, an IDM member, CEO also of the Instituto de Formação Bancária in Portugal. My sincere gratitude to all of you for sharing your time and experiences with us today. As usual, also my very special thanks to PLMJ and in particular to Bruno Ferreira, Managing Partner, and Patricia Capella from the events team for partnering with us. We have an exceptional wide audience today, and as such, my apologies, but we cannot have all of you with the live sound. As such, whenever you have a question, may I please ask you to write them on the chat function, and within the allowance of time, I will then raise it to the relevant speaker. Again, thank you all for attending, and I will hand over now to Bruno Ferreira, also to host all of you. Thank you. Bruno.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Susan. It's once again a pleasure to hold this event with the Alumni Association and team. For us, I'll keep it brief in order so that we can catch up on timing today, and of course listen to the very interesting insights from the participants here. But I just wanted to say really briefly that for us nowadays this is a very serendipitous, and I've said this time and time again, this is a very serendipitous occasion in which we feel that the interests of our people and our partners are fully aligned with those of our clients, and in fact with the big part of society, of course. So besides incorporating these values into our own internal operations, we here at PLMJ are actually on the front line when it comes to using these experiences and the innovative approach in order to help companies rise to these types of challenges. We've done this type of work on numerous occasions and in numerous sectors. It included environmental legal work, sustainable and social finance work. And now it's very interestingly pivoting to other areas such as business and human rights and more generally ESG strategies. We're very excited with this. We've organized formally a separate group here in the firm that tries to put all of this experience together and see how we can leverage it to not only internally but also externally, and have also very recently are very excited to have partnered with the Nova Knowledge Center on Business, Human Rights and the Environment with Professor Claire Bright. So thank you very much, Susanna, and all the participants, and I now wish you a very good session today.
Thank you very much. If I may hand over now to José Leitão, as I said before, Managing Director in Santander Group and Head of ESG Analytics in the Global ESG Solutions team. Before I hand over to José, I just want to make clear that José is here today to talk to us about these topics, but please note these are José views and knowledge, and in any manner they represent any specific recommendation or methodology necessarily developed by Santander Group. So without further delays, José, thank you once again, and I look forward to hear what you have to share with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. It's a pleasure to be here, and good afternoon to all, to the audience, to my fellow panelists. So let me give you a short overview of the ESG rating, the assessment providers. This is a big part of my team's job. Because these are relatively, new players, even though some of them have some history, but in terms of their importance, they're relatively new. They are increasingly important in capital markets, but still difficult to understand, I would say, right? The landscape is very complex and very, very fragmented. There's different providers by sector, by geography, by methodology, by approach, and this is fastly changing, right? So it leaves the different stakeholders of this information sometimes confused, sometimes frustrated, and this is something that is the reality of the ESG universe at this point. Nevertheless, they are very important and increasingly so. In my view, the most important, let's say, gap that these players are trying to fill, right, is the lack of uniform reporting in ESG. As I think we all know that this is probably the biggest bottleneck in the development of this topic. And this kind of ESG ratings, ESG data providers help fill this, if you want, information asymmetry between how corporates think they are performing and how their stakeholders perceive them as they perform. Also, and I will say something that is very obvious, but with any ESG topic, this is in motion, right? So we anticipate that the current landscape will evolve, and I think there's three factors for it. First, there's increasing consolidation of players in this industry. The second is that let's say the clients of this data are more demanding in terms of transparency, quality, and let's say coordination, and finally it's in terms of regulation, right? So there is an expectation that this industry will be regulated in the future, right? In terms of, especially in Europe, there have been some noise that this is going to happen. So bear in mind that what I'm going to tell you today, it's not something that maybe it will be the case in a couple of months. Also, I think just to give you this background, before focusing on ESG, I used to work in credit rating advisory. And I think that leaves me also with a particular view of how these two industries relate, right? The credit ratings and the ESG ratings. And it's very interesting. If I have some time, I would like to give you just a very quick overview of how they compare. But let me maybe start with, for me, the fundamental question here, and one that many people struggle with, which is what is ESG performance? Okay, so ESG ratings, their mission is to assess companies in terms of their ESG performance. But here lies probably the first hurdle in this industry, which is there is significant disagreement in what ESG performance means. And this is to illustrate how different this is from what we're used to. If we look at other parts of the investment bank, say analysts' opinion in terms of the company's research analysts, right? The performance that they are measuring is the company valuation, and therefore it's you either are right or wrong or close or far, right? So there's an objective measure. Credit ratings, and I think I will talk about credit ratings a lot. Again, you have default risk, right? So you give the credit rating agencies provide a rating, and then that's the objective measure of that rating to which you can compare is default risk, right? For ESG performance, there's no such thing, right? Because in one hand, you have the double materiality of ESG, right? Which is the ESG performance, how well the company is preparing to deal with ESG risk and opportunity, or is it how the company is affecting their environment and the society and communities? Probably both. That's the double materiality. But some ratings measure one, other ratings measure the other. Other types of ratings are ratings that are more risk-based ratings, meaning that they rate companies according to how exposed are those companies to ESG risk and opportunity. And finally, you have some ratings that only measure management quality. So how good is management of the company if you're managing the ESG topic? So given that the different providers are measuring different things, it's no surprise that the correlation of these ratings is low. And actually it's very low, right? Some studies give it around 0.3, others 0.6, but very, very far from the above 0.9 correlation that credit ratings have. And in practical terms, that raises confusion and frustration, both from the companies that are being rated, but also for investors and other stakeholders that are using this information. If they don't understand exactly what is being measured, they might find out, and there's several examples where a company in one rating agency performs in the top quartile, and the same company in a different rating provider is at the bottom, right? So it's different to see, is it a good company, is it a bad company? It's kind of difficult to navigate this space. You need to drill down and understand what ESG performance are they talking about. In terms of the landscape of these ratings, there's, as I said, there's a multitude of rating providers. They have different methodologies. Some of them a bit opaque, so difficult to read. They use different scales, and they also use different metrics to measure the same, let's say, dimension. So this is also another, let's say, difficulty in navigating this space. And as I think I make the point, it's difficult to generalize in this sector. I would say that most or the most important agencies they use a model that they base their rating in reported data. Okay, so the company produces a corporate sustainability report, a social responsibility report, a sustainability report, an integrated report. Those agencies get the information that is reported, apply their methodology, and have limited interaction with management, right? So here lies, I would say, another difficulty of this industry, which is ESG is a very fast-moving space, but these ratings speak to the information that was reported last year, that was probably prepared in the third quarter or beginning of fourth quarter of the previous year. In the meantime, the world has moved on, the company has moved on, but these ratings still relate to information that was published many months ago. To be sure, and just to be completely clear, I'm not talking to all agencies, because there are different agencies. Some other agencies, which I find very interesting, they're adopting a different model, which is called the outside-in model. And there, they don't take any information that was reported from the company, but they use artificial intelligence, machine learning, to scan let's say, the different sources of information and score, if you want, how the stakeholders look at these companies, right? My view is that you don't need to pick one or the other, right? This is not mutually exclusive. Maybe the equilibrium is at the middle, right? And you look at outside-in ratings, you look at more traditional ESG ratings, and you build yourself a more complete view of the ESG performance of that company. Let me tell you another, I think, interesting point about these agencies is that most of them have an investor-led model, meaning that their clients are investors, that they use that information as a ESG signal for their investment decisions. And again, I think it's important to try to understand how investors use this data or this information. Again, it's difficult to generalize, probably wrong to generalize, because every investor will use it slightly different. And my experience tells me that the most sophisticated investors, the large investors, don't rely on the ESG rating as an investment factor. They rather use the ESG data that underlies this rating in order to perform their investment analysis. Smaller investors may rely on a single or more than one ESG rating in order to provide that ESG signal. But again, this multitude of users from a corporate perspective, I think it's very interesting to understand where the importance of the ESG signal lies in this rating. So I just, for the sake of time, I'll be very quick here, but I would like to provide you with in my view, what are the key differences between ESG ratings and credit ratings that you might be more familiar with because they have been here longer, right? So the first is that this is an unregulated industry so far, right? It might change in the future. So there's no methodology, oversight, conflict of interest management, other types of quality assurance that we have in credit ratings. We are walking towards that in the ESG ratings, but still we find that there are some ESG rating agencies that provide other type of services to the companies that they rate, which could potentially lead to a perceived conflict of interest. The methodologies of the credit rating agencies, as you know, are very transparent. They're public, so everybody has access to them. The methodologies of ESG ratings, I would say, are rather opaque and also changing. Some of these agencies change significantly their methodologies from one point to the other, which with no specific regulatory oversight. And finally, another an important difference is the scales. So as you know, the credit ratings, even though they slightly differ in terminology, they have the same scale, or they follow the same scale. For ESG ratings, that's not the case. Some have 0 to 100 as 100 being the best. Some have exactly the opposite. So the 0 is the best. Sometimes they change, the same agency changes the scale and they revert it. And so it's, and another that is important is that some of them are absolute, some of them are sector relative. So a rating for, say, an oil and gas company in a specific agency could be AAA. That doesn't mean that this in absolute level they're a AAA company ESG wise, but for their own sector, so in this case oil and gas, they might be AAA, right? So the scales could be quite different. So all this leads to certain biases on these ratings that I think we should be aware of. Let me tell you three, maybe the most important ones, which is the size bias. So companies that are bigger, larger, they tend to have higher ratings. And this is because those ratings are based in reported data. And companies that are larger have larger resources to dedicate to report ESG data, and therefore they tend to have higher ratings. And this is a distortion. The other is a geography bias. European companies tend to have higher ratings, and this is because they are subject to stricter regulation for longer, right? So they are more, if you want, equipped to deal with ESG than other companies in other regions. And there's also a sector bias. Right? And I think it's important to be aware of those biases when we use this information, because it could lead to misleading or to distorted decisions. I've talked about regulation, and here what I would like to tell you is that even though there's, as far as I know, not a specific calendar to apply regulation to this sector, there have been different statements by ESMA, by the European Commission, that indicate that some regulation will come to this sector. So this is more of a wait and see view, but my personal view is that sooner rather than later, we will see more regulation, better management of this space. So the final point I would like to leave you with is, so from a corporate side, or from, if you want, from a rated entity side, what can we do, right? How can we deal with so many pitfalls in this landscape? And there are some steps that one can take in order to, I wouldn't say win and succeed in every pitfall, but to try to manage it. And the most important, I would say, is to take control of the narrative. ESG is there's a lot of noise around ESG, and increasingly so. So the corporates and the companies being rated should have a clear strategy and communicate it very, very clearly. The second step that we think companies should take is produce data that is investor ready. So investors, especially the most sophisticated ones, want to compare apples with apples. If every company, or most companies in the same sector, report data in different ways, different types of data, the same data but in different formats, it's very difficult to compare. So they rely on ESG ratings to do that uniformization. So what companies could do is try to understand how investors use this information, what are their most important stakeholders, and produce data that is the most comparable and the most transparent, and that communicates a coherent narrative of their ESG. So I could go a bit longer, but just for the interest of time, Suzanne, if you agree, let me stop here, and I will be delighted to receive any question.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, José. We've got two questions from Carlos Morisca. The first one is if you foresee consolidation in the rating providers sector. And the second one is if you think standardization on ESG reporting will help increase the correlation between ESG ratings. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Absolutely. I expect, in fact, consolidation is already taking place. There's several recent examples of players merging. One interesting aspect of this trend is actually the credit rating agencies, so S&P and Moody's, entering this space. As an example, Moody's acquired some years ago Vigeo Eiris. And this is something that I foresee that this trend will keep going, and we will have less and less bigger players. That's my conviction. In terms of the reporting, I also agree with that. So the ESG reporting, as you know, right now is quite inconsistent, not regulated, and therefore this leads to two problems for ESG ratings. The first is that their methodology use different data, because as there's no consolidation, each provider, consistency, each provider will take the information that they think it's the best, right? For a specific ESG subtopic, they might use different metrics, right? But then the second issue is around, even if they're looking at the same metric, they will use different methodologies to score that specific metric. And again, that's the basis for that difference, is because companies provide differing formats of information. If there's more standardization, my view is that this difference will reduce.
Thank you very much, José. Carlos Morisca is from EDP, and I believe he has no further questions. I don't think we've got any other questions at this point that I can see in the chat. So I think what I'll do and suggest we do is we move on, and then if anyone has questions, please write them in the chat, because no participant today can raise questions in voice due to the very wide audience we have, as I said before. And if in the meantime there is any other question that comes to you, we'll be able to share it. While I was saying this, I just saw that there's another question coming through, so I will raise this one before we move to Ludovic, if that's okay. Which it comes from an anonymous person. I mean, at least perhaps the iPad comes without a name. But basically, the question is: will the EU Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, in preparation, somehow reduce the inconsistencies and provide a common base for the ESG rating? I don't know if you have a view on this, José.
Yes, no, I think that this Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive is a step in the right direction. It's not the only reporting harmonization efforts going on. In fact, there is several that are going on at the same speed. But from an European perspective, and my hope and my understanding is that all these different harmonization efforts that are currently occurring, they will have, hopefully, they will be coordinated, right? Because I think it will not be positive for Europe to have specific standards that are different from the other constituencies, even though in several topics of ESG, Europe is leading the way, and other regions are catching up. So it would not be terrible that happens, because then other regions would catch up. But my understanding is that in the US, in other parts of the world, there are efforts to harmonize ESG reporting that are very encouraging. And just relating back to the previous question, yes, the fact that there will be more consistent reporting will manage several of the, let's say, pitfalls that I've described earlier, and will lead to, in my opinion, to a higher correlation. It will not be the only thing, in my opinion, because I've also talked about the different scales, the different methodologies, but the base on which they perform their analysis will help consistency, for sure. That's my view.
Thank you, José. Thank you very much. So we move now to Ludovic Risset, who is going to walk us through the Danone ESG journey. Ludovic is country managing director for Danone Portugal, and he also serves as vice president for Grace Association, Responsible Companies, as a consulting board member for Santa Casa da Misericórdia Social Fund, Fundo Plus, and is also a mentor for Startup Lisbon, among others. Ludovic, thank you so much for being with us today. And if you can share with us the very interesting journey that Danone is going through, we would really be glad with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. I'm glad to be with you. I'm honored. I'm lucky to be a AAA ESG after this very interesting presentation from José. And just to be clear, I'm far to be an expert in ESG. And thank you, José, for the amazing presentation, a very interesting expertise on the topic. So as Susanna said, I'm going to share a presentation just to give you a touch of what is ESG for Danone. And so it's, I'm going to, okay, I guess it's working. So it's a 15-slide presentation just to show you a little bit how we see ESG with very simple words. So don't expect a huge expertise on that, but I think the interesting is to see how a company like Danone tackle these topics. So first, just as a teasing, we have a logo, and like most companies, not to say all the companies, and I don't know if you remember, but in 2017, so 4 years ago, we changed our logo, and we are a marketing company, so we give a lot of attention on that, which may not be the case of many people, including our consumers, but we decided 4 years ago to change it and to put this little key to look at on the right instead of the left. Don't ask me why now is looking at on the right, but I think the important is what is written below the brand Danone. And now our vision is one planet, one health. I've been lucky to be in Berlin in 2017 when Emmanuel Faber presented to the press and to the world this new logo, and actually insisted on one point, which is the point between one planet and one health. That must be very strange, a small detail. But for him, probably the most important is this point. And this point is the link between what we do on the planet and what we do on the health of the people. And all our vision, everything we do is around planet and health. So that's what just a teasing who I am. Thanks, Susanna, for the nice description. Just to tell you that I'm today a pure Danoneur. I've been working for Danone for 24 years. Very international. I'm originally from France, but I only worked 3 years in France in the group. But I've been spent half my time in Latin America, Panama, Venezuela, Brazil, in Asia, in Tokyo, in Italy, in Portugal, 9 years in Portugal. And going through all the categories that we have in Danone, so yogurts obviously, but baby waters, and as I just said, I've been in the corporate, and I have one wife, my wife, and 2 kids born in Portugal. So Danone, just very quickly, four bullet points. As I said, our vision is called One Planet, One Health. By the way, I forgot the most important, which is the point between planet and health, but don't say to my boss. It's a 25 billion euros company, more than 100,000 employees, and we have an EBIT of 15%. I just have a movie which is 1 minute and 70 seconds. I'm going to share it with you just to give a mood. It's not something nothing new, but it gives a view on a kind of alert that we put on ourselves and very much on this One Planet, One Health. Okay, so as I said, and just a mood board. It's a movie just to remind us how important is our planet and our health, and how linked they are both. At global level, just to share with you, this is our Bible, divided in 3 that we call on the middle of brand model, with 3 pillars. We have a business model and we have a trust model. For sake of time, I will not go through all the pillars. I just selected some of them, and I just want to show you a little bit how we track them. But this is really our Bible, and happy to answer some question on that. The first one is called Impact People Health Locally. As you saw, we are a food and beverage company. We are quite big all over the world, and that is something that touches us, and this is a decision that happened 23 years ago, when we decided to focus our product on health. And today 90% of volume is made by products that are officially considered healthy. And you probably, may not be so important 22 years ago, and now by pure chance or chance, I don't know, but I don't know if you, for the one reading Financial Times a few days ago, you had this scandal coming from the Financial Times about Nestlé that has more than 60% of its products which are not considered as healthy. And something that is becoming very, very important. And without naming what happened also a few days ago with Cristiano Ronaldo and this Coke affair, and Pogba did the same with Heineken, etc. So today, being a food company and caring about the health of the people is something very important. Just call your attention on Nutri-Score. You see on this slide, on the right below part of the slide, Nutri-Score, it's something that it's booming in some countries, not yet recognized officially in Portugal. I do believe it will happen because a lot of companies are following it. We committed in Portugal to have all our products with Nutri-Score by the end of this year. Auchan did the same, Nestlé did the same, many companies, Dia did the same, Unipresso, Lidl is doing the same. It's a way to help the consumer to identify what are the products nutrition value between A obviously being the best and E being the worst. Another pillar that we call Grow Manifesto brands. You can see more and more in the world brands that are more activist. So we do have like brand like this in Danone. I'm sure you know Ben & Jerry, which is a brand from Unilever, also being an activist. And something for us, being a manifesto brand is a brand that take position for gender equality. This is an example we have with Bonafont in Mexico, for more healthy or organic farming like Les Deux Vaches, which is a brand, organic brand in France, or about kids nutrition. But we do believe that the responsibility of a brand is not only to have the best products, but also as we invest a lot of money in communication, is to use this communication to take party, to be this activist and to defend the cause. And this is something very important. Today we have 27 manifesto brands out of hundreds of brands. So we still have a lot of brands that are not manifesto, but we try to work on to have more and more manifesto brands. A third pillar I wanted to share with you, it's called Foster Inclusive Growth. We, as a Danone company, we do invest in social causes. So we have 3 funds. You may know them. One is called Danone Communities. We have Danone Ecosystem, and we have livelihoods funds. So we invest millions in order to either to help to give people who have no food or difficulty to have food and water. And Danone Ecosystem, for example, also it's a fund where we have more than 190 million euros in order to help partners in order to develop a little bit what happened in Bangladesh with a Nobel Prize that you all know, Mohamed Yunus. It's a way to give credit to people to build their own business in order to have money and to get more food and beverages. Another pillar is called Foster Inclusive Growth, as was one of the one shared just before. For us, it's more and more important to have a very accurate, very strong traceability on our products. So today, far to be perfect, but we are trying to improve day after day. We consume a lot of ingredients, but we try to make them good for the people, but also good for the planet. And you know, Emmanuel Faber many times in these speeches been talking about this regenerative agriculture, which is for us above the organic one, because at the end, the organic one is basically, to make it very simple, is for us at least, it's just not to use pesticides. Regenerative agriculture is more than that. It's to to make the land even richer. And that's something we take care of in everything we do. Another one is about innovation. We are a company depending a lot on innovations. And I take the example of Portugal. 20% of our sales in Portugal is made by products we launch in the last 2 months, in the last previous 12 months, sorry. So we know our consumers want innovation, and we spend a lot of money and time in order to find the right innovation. So either with new flavors, with new packaging, and again, trying to give a value, an additional value to the consumer. More and more packaging are, I would say, better for the planet. Obviously, you know, I cannot hide myself behind the fact that we do use a lot of plastic. We are a company using a lot of plastic, but we are trying to make this plastic more and more sustainable. And I will give you an example later on Portugal. Now, as Susanna said, B Corp is a certification, which is for us very, very, very important. Today, half of our business is covered by B Corp, and we want to be 100% certified B Corp by 2025. And Susanna was right in the introduction. This is worldwide, and in Portugal, we are in the process to be B Corp. There are very few companies B Corp in Portugal, and will be B Corp by Jan or Feb 2022. So it's very soon. Why for us B Corp is important? It's not very famous yet in Europe. It is in the Anglo-Saxon countries, in the US and UK also. As an example, some retailers in UK now, for Tesco, for example, made a promotion with only B Corp products. So it's starting to be famous. B Corp, it's a very tough certification. For me, it's a pure ESG. So it touches, you know, the ecological part, the social part, the governance. So you have 200 questions, and you just need to be perfect on the 200 questions in order to be satisfied. So for us, it's a way, not only, you know, because it's a commitment that we made externally, but also very much internally. And I see our employees are very motivated to work on that, because it's linked to concrete actions that we have to do on our products, on the office where we work in, everything. It touches everything. Now, Portugal. Just want to have two slides to share with you on Portugal. The first one, I try to make a kind of quick summary of things that we have done as a GM of Portugal. The first one called circular economy. As I said, we are trying to make our plastic either less and less plastic, or trying to make this plastic more healthy for the planet. And one commitment we made is to transform all our yogurts that are made of PS, which is not a very good plastic, to be frank, to PET by 2022, and at European level by 2024. So we, Emmanuel Faber, 3 years ago, explained that we invested, and we are investing 2 billion euros in order to transform our factories and to stop all the production of PS yogurts. Most of the yogurts in the world are in PS. Now by 2024 in Europe, all Danone yogurts will be in PET. Okay, PET has the advantage to be recyclable, and at the advantage in some cases also is to use rPET. Okay, so we stop using virgin PET, and it's a very circular economy. Plant-based also, obviously everybody knows that how polluting our cow, and being a yogurt company, obviously we know the carbon impact we have. So we do believe, and we invest a lot in plant-based. 6 years ago we bought White Wave, which is an American company. We bought it 12 billion euros. We made us the plant-based leader worldwide. And today you have brands like Alpro, like Provamel that you probably know in Europe, and we have plenty of brands in North America and in other parts of the world. But we are investing a lot. I would say that our first priority in Danone today is plant-based, and it's strange maybe to hear that from the #1 worldwide yogurt producer, animal producer, I would say. Then removal of plastic caps. This is something that happened. I have a slide. This is one of the decisions I took last year. When I arrived in Portugal, we have this liquid yogurt that you see on the slide with a cap, a plastic cap, and we were buying 150 million caps just for Portugal, which is 200 tons of plastic. And the decision I took, and validated obviously by the board, has been to take out these caps. This is a tough decision because at the end we know that it's better for the planet to take out the cap, but at the end it's a value that you take out from for the consumer. And I can tell you that when it happened in July last year. We started to take them out, and I got a lot of claims, a lot of reclamation of people, complaining that it was missing a cap. And the type of decision that I do still believe this is the right decision to take, that any company should reduce as much as possible the plastic use. Nevertheless, I think it's important to know that in many cases, unfortunately, the impact on business can be strong. So it's tough to say how much I lost, because at the end, due to COVID, it's a little bit complex to separate the effect. But I know that I've been losing a little bit of sales because of that. Now, just on the second pillar, clear provenance. We try to be as local as possible. 20% of our products sold in Portugal are produced in Portugal, and we are trying to do it and to increase it, to do it more. Juntos is an initiative that we launched last year, which is, I would say, kind of COVID product, but in a positive way, meaning that when happened the COVID last year, we did believe that the country was needed much more social help. So we launched a product called Juntos, which is together in Portuguese. And every 4 bottles, every pack bought by consumer, we were giving 1 bottle to a food bank. This product is amazing. It's made in Portugal. It's written on the packaging. It's Nutri-Score A, which is the only drinkable yogurt in Portugal to be A. It's quite some preferred flavors by the Portuguese, like strawberry or red fruits, and unfortunately it did not work. The price was amazing, 169, and I think this is I really want to share that with you, because at the end, again, it was something very social oriented. I'm not saying that we are the Red Cross and we launch products just for helping. Obviously, we have a money objective, we have top line and bottom line objective, but at the end, when we try to give this touch of social, it's not easy to find the right balance to make it sustainable, both on the health, ecologically, socially, and on business. But this is our main, and this is our objective. Now, just to end on the 2 last pillars, new health, so Nutri-Score already discussed that. Probiotics, as you know, yogurt is a probiotics, and we do believe that we need to push the people to consume more probiotics. In many cases, now plant-based for the one that don't want to consume animal products. And we are every year, or nearly every year, trying to lower sugar. which is another stuff also. And to be frank, we will be the first one to take out sugar. Unfortunately, when we go too far in lowering sugar, our sales lower as much as the sugar, they go down. So we are trying to be always doing some consumer tests in order to have the right level of sugar for the people to love the product, because the organoleptic indicator is the most important when we talk about food products. Finally, trust. As I said, so we have we do donations every day. We don't have waste. Actually, the product we don't sell, we give them to some association, to food banks. B Corp I already said, and we have some volunteers program like many companies. And that's it that I had in this for you to share. Thank you very much, and happy to answer some questions.
Thank you very much, Ludwig. Very insightful. I think we've got an audience a little bit shy on the chat today, but I do actually have a question for you. You said that for Danone it was quite important to become a B Corp, right? And your journey began quite a while ago. I can appreciate today why this is important, but when you began, this topic was much more innovative and much less topical. So I'm very curious to know how this became so strategic for Danone. If you could just share that with us, would be very useful.
Yeah, thank you, Susanna, for the question. I think it's very much linked to the acquisition we made of WhiteWave, this big company in the US. Being a US company, B Corp became important for us because we understood that B Corp was already very important in the US. So I think we want to be the first multinational, being 100% B Corp worldwide. As I said, Ben & Jerry from Unilever, you have a lot of, not a lot, but some brands that are B Corp. We want to be the first one by 2024 to be fully B Corp, which is huge, and 25 billion euros revenue being certified B Corp. And again, I think the effect is much stronger internally than externally. We are starting to put the B Corp logo on some products in some countries, but the impact on sales is zero. There is no impact on sales. But internally is amazing. I mean, the commitment, the engagement of the people to be B Corp, you know, I think, you know, and recently these new generations, call them Z, millennials, a lot of them go to companies that are very well engaged and committed on ESG agenda or on B Corp, and B Corp help us, you know, to catch these talents. I've seen a lot of people, you know, young people entering Danone, not because they love yogurt or they love water, just because they see how aggressive we are behind this agenda. And I see it in Portugal also. I have a team working on B Corp to become B Corp. They're working on that, and they are super motivated.
Mm-hmm. One of the questions that actually came through now is from Catarina Soares da Cunha, and she was actually asking if you think that in Portugal consumers value, so not the employees but consumers, if they value a B Corp company. I mean, is there enough education? I think that's what is behind her question, for people to appreciate the effort that means and the positive impact that being a B Corp makes.
My answer is super clear. Not at all. Not at all. You know, there is a very interesting McKinsey survey that show specifically these indicators. And you know, when you ask the consumer before entering a supermarket if they are ready to save the world and they are willing to take attention when they buy the products on this ESG commitment from the brand or from the companies, 52% say yes, I am going to select my product depending on the ESG commitment. The reality then, and this survey is very recent, it's last year and has been done in 7 countries. The reality is that for food, the first indicator is organoleptic, so it's the taste. The second one is price. And price is in the top 3 of all the categories. And the ecological, let's say to make it more simple, and it was ecological in the McKinsey ranking, is on the level 14. So that at the end, when the act of buying or purchasing, people's minds are different. You know, they are on food, it's taste and price. And you know, and then maybe the packaging, but this is a reality. And in the same for other things. For example, we have been tasting to put made in Portugal on some products. Impact on sales, zero. And I know today that it's not because you are in Portugal, because we are in Portugal, it would be a Spanish product in Spain, but the impact on sales is zero. Even if, again, I've seen very recently a study that shows that some people will be able or ready to pay 5% more, which is nothing, 5% more. In reality, it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And this is this is a fact. Now, it doesn't mean that as a company, we don't have a responsibility to try to reduce our carbon footprint and to produce in Portugal, that we need to reduce the plastic and to transform this plastic from PS to PT, etc., etc. And this is what we will do. But today, in terms of purchasing decision, the impact is none.
Okay. We may see that differently at some point, hopefully. Now, our colleague and friend Celina Abcacis Moedas is asking 2 questions for you, Ludovic. One is, why do you think Juntos did not work? And the second one, which I think is provocative, but is very relevant, is how do you think this agenda may change without Emmanuel Faber?
Thank you, Céline, for the nice questions. Okay. So I could spend a lot of time answering, and they are very interesting questions. Juntos didn't work. It was not the right moment to launch it. It was too much, and we were too many brands. And I think consumer in this period could have seen this initiative negatively and trying to see a company take advantage of a tough moment to do a kind of greenwashing. Because if you see the mix of Juntos, it was perfect. And probably this is the second reason. You know, sometimes when you build on the mix of products, you need to be the best on 1 or 2 indicators. In Juntos, it was too much good in everything. And probably it was missing one thing, which was amazing. This in summary, what I do believe Juntos didn't work. Now, the agenda ESG with the exit of Emmanuel Faber, with the choice that the board did of Antoine de Saint-Affrique, which is going to be the new CEO from September, I do believe we'll keep the same direction. The vision will not change. The mission will not change. He will have his touch, obviously, but I think the choice of Antoine is really to keep this model of Danone, this double commitment on social and business. Antoine has been for many years in Unilever. He was in Danone at the beginning. A lot of Danoners know Antoine. since the beginning. He started in Cronenbourg. He's been marketing director of Mai. So he's an ex-Danone. He knows the group. So I do believe it will keep the same pace in the same direction.
Thank you, Ludovic. I've got a final question for you, and then a comment or an observation. So perhaps we begin with the observation, which is also quite provocative, and then we go to the question, which is a little bit more forward-looking. So Ron Franken, hope I'm saying your name with the right accent. Said, you know, you talked about manifesto brands, but he finds, Ron, finds your traceability a little bit shallow. 70% of cocoa traceable to be specific to country is hardly revolutionary stuff, he says, belonging to a manifesto brand. He's saying, you know, compare, for example, that with Tony's Chocolonely, where they really make a statement. I don't know what would be your thoughts on these.
So thank you for that. He is absolutely right. Okay, just two comments. One, I share this slide because this is the official slide which is available for everyone. Actually, this is 2019. Now we are in 21, so we increased that. Two, the slide is divided in two, and actually between the traceability and the manifesto brand, there is a correlation, but it's not direct. For us, manifesto brand is really what we do believe is this this commitment and this activism of a brand should have, and so it's not a direct correlation between both. But he's right, and 70% is I mean, it's normal, nothing special.
Okay, thank you for being so honest. And then Beatriz Araújo from Baker McKenzie is asking what trends you see next. So if you would think about ESG 2.0, how does that look like to you?
ESG 0.0, ponto 2, ponto 3 or ponto 4.
Yeah. The next generation.
The next generation, as I said before, what we have inside, and and I will answer as a Danone, and not my opinion. I mean, it's my opinion also, but I want to answer as a Danone. As I said, plant-based is perfectly matching this ESG next generation. Okay. Both for the planet and for the health of the people. Okay, and this is recognized by the UN, it's recognized by many people, and then each one does what he wants. Okay, so if people want to be vegetarian, they are vegetarian. They want to eat animals product, but I think there is a consensus to say that plant-based is better for everyone. Okay, and for the planet included. This is one thing. Then the second thing, and as I said, in a very transparent way, you know, being a consumer good company which transports products in plastic packaging, and here we have a huge responsibility. So the next generation is initiative like Loop. You probably have seen this initiative launched by a Canadian company. Now they are everywhere in the world. Loop, which is basically, for example, to use the same packaging, and you know, and you have a system that take your packaging and you buy products, but at the end you buy only what is inside the packaging. So I think that there is a huge revolution. I do believe, you know, my kids are 18 and 15. I do believe that then when these kids will have the power of the wallet, when they will buy, you know, and they will decide, because today they don't. They are both vegetarian, and this is a decision, and many of them I think are. But when they will have the power, the impact will be amazing. And we do prepare that because, you know, as I said just before, in a very frank and direct, today, when I say, you know, when you are a AAA ESG, or you are B Corp, or you are, you know, local, or doesn't make you sell more today. But I do believe that tomorrow, if you are not, you will not be existing. So it's not, you know, we do believe that, I do believe that. And this for me is the ESG next generation.
Fabulous. Ludovic, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We now move on for the journey of SAP and its clients, and with us we've got João Paulo da Silva, and we have also Mark, Nola, and Carlos Diaz. João Paulo da Silva is the General Manager for SAP in EMEA South countries. It's also an INSEAD International Directors Network member, and actually as we met. And I think very important today, ESG passionate. So João Paulo, thank you so much for being here today with your team to share with us your experiences. And I hand over to you now.
Susanna, thank you very much for inviting us and for having us here. It's a pleasure, and also congratulations to Danone. Being a AAA company, it's not an easy task. By the way, I was just Googling, and there are only 3% of the companies worldwide, according to MSI index, that are AAA. So also SAP is one of them, fortunately. In fact, I think since the beginning of the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, we have been the #1 company in software companies. So we have, let's say, a good legacy also in this part. Maybe, Mark, if you could help me on pull the slides in, you will be able to see. So I'm here together with two of my great colleagues, Carlos Diaz, that drives all our sustainability business and work in Europe South, and also Mark Nola in strategic innovation as well. You will see on the slides that will be distributed to you that we have also our emails, and you can always contact us afterwards if needed. So if I start, and I'm not sure if everybody's seen the presentation, hopefully yes. The first message that I would like to start with is balance. We have a top, bottom line and green line, and at the end of the day, the three of them are very important. Also, like ESG, the three pillars of ESG, they also need to be well balanced. The same way we need to make sustainability profitable, we also need to make sure that profitability is becoming more sustainable. And therefore, this is the first message that I would like to leave with you, this balance that needs to exist. If we move to the next slide, and there are some collection of good articles that INSEAD has produced around wicked problems and wicked times that we have today. And the reality is that they require new leadership approaches. And while most of us could agree on the causes of the problems that we have today, the reality is that we need to take different decisions compared to what we were doing on the past. And therefore, if we advance one slide, we have three key questions, which is, first of all, we are responsible for what, right? Until which point are we responsible for? As directors, as board members, as companies, right? The second question is, to whom are we accountable for? Of course, we have the shareholders, but we have many stakeholders around this discussion: customers, providers, employees, unions, etc. And then the last question is, who's responsible at the end of the day, right? If somebody in the full supply chain decides to have child labor, which impacts at the end of the day our brand and our image, who is responsible for that, right? And these questions need to be answered and need to be addressed in a full transparency of the supply chain. So therefore, in SAP, we have done a survey globally for key executives across the globe, and asking about the motivations and the drivers. You will not see, but we are going to magnify the top 3 ones because we are not 20 years old anymore, and I'm sure our eyes will require a bit of more magnifying on this size. And basically this survey, let's say, drove or brought to the ES three key areas. The first one, the good news is that, boards and CEOs are environmentally committed to do things, which is great. The second one is that also the governments are paying attention and are driving regulation on tenders, on many areas that need to follow these areas. But the third one, and not least important, is that the business executives see a huge opportunity of growth in revenue, growth in profit, but not only, growth in differentiation. For example, just before, we have heard José Leitão saying very well that there are some biases of size or biases of region, because Europe tends to be a bit ahead compared to the rest of the world. Why not taking advantage that bias towards Europe, that we might be a bit ahead and gain competitive advantage as well on this topic? So therefore, it's if we move to the next slide, right, and understanding that we have this commitment on this question that I asked before, we are trying to walk the talk in SAP. And a data point here that you would not be aware, 77% of all transactions in the world at some point in time touch an SAP system. This is a nice statement, right? But brings with that a downside and a responsibility, which is also that 85% of the largest carbon intensive companies in the world, they use our systems and our processes. So we have a bigger obligation to help these companies to become much more greener than they are today, right? And basically in SAP, we are committed to do that. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but since 2014, all our data centers only use renewable energy. We don't use plastics since this year globally anymore in the company. We have committed only in 2 years' time to become CO2 neutral across the globe as well. And we have also the first German company to set a science target basing, and we have accounting systems to address climate change, etc., 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 that I'm not going to be talking about here. So with that, in my presentation, if we move to the next slide, basically, we have divided our presentation in these 3 pillars because we believe balancing the 3 of them is quite important. At the end of the day, as directors, as board, it's about governance and how do we govern sustainability, how do we govern social, and we are going to start with the governance pillar and then follow with the environmental and social. And with that, I would like to introduce my dear colleague, Mark Nolia, to continue. Mark?
Thank you very much, João Paulo. So, for the past 50 years, SAP has been supporting thousands of customers, of leading brands, in their efficient use of their resources, in their financial reporting, overall in their compliance. But as João Paulo mentioned, there's a shift in priorities. We now need to transform ourselves, but also support our customers to meet that new balance, to move only from financial efficiency and reporting to bring in, of course, environmental and social aspects. This shift within our own organization is led by our global Chief Financial Officer, Luka Mucic. And the focus is double. First of all, to be an example, to be a leader in sustainability, in applying technology to be the most sustainable company in our industry, but also to leverage that knowledge, to use technology to help our customers, for them to be more sustainable. And you can see the impact of this transformation. For example, if you go to our global integrated report for the past years, you can already see there that we're not only reporting on financial performance, but combining that with social performance and environmental performance. But there's also a very interesting aspect, and it's how we're using technology to do this. If you deep dive a bit more in that report, you come to a topic that José Leitão addressed just a moment ago, that double materiality, that lack of clarity on ESG ratings. So as José just mentioned, if you really want to trace, if you want to report on what you believe is your ESG performance, you need to do a shift beyond only the standards, the regulation, and what is, let's say, the compliance aspects. So at SAP, what we did is reach out and really analyze what are all those variables that are impacting our business, our top line, our bottom line, our efficiency, what at the end of the day, our shareholders would care about, but then also reach out to other stakeholders. How is SAP impacting them? What is relevant for, yes, shareholders, but also customers, employees, suppliers, the environment we operate in? And a third dimension, that's very important. What are the variables where SAP has a more impact in society? When you take these three dimensions, the volume of data is huge. We had to apply advanced analytics, machine learning to help us come up really with this matrix in a consistent and manner that we could report on. So if you take the top criteria, variables you need to report on resulting from this, at SAP we identified with the feedback from our stakeholders, it was security, privacy, and data protection. It was ethics and compliance. It was employee rights. It was addressing climate change. This is how we believe our stakeholders really want us to report on our ESG performance. But it's also how do we use this technology to address these key priorities? Think about security, privacy, and data protection. This has moved away to what we used to call cybersecurity and having our systems protected. It has moved to a much broader concept, which you need to lead on. It's information security. You must guarantee, yes, the protection of data, but it's transparency, it's privacy. This is, for example, how we're applying, again, machine learning and advanced technologies to help, for example, the Ministry of Finance in the Czech Republic to identify really who's using the data, what's that data at risk, who's trying to access incorrectly, and proactively manage any potential future cyber attacks. That's the shift in your responsibility in this space. When we get to the ethics and compliance, as pointed out by João Paulo in that paper from INSEAD, through the digital transformation, the networks, the global supply chains become extremely complex. We need technology here to help us continuously monitor a complexity of touch points that no human can be aware of. So here we use technology within SAP, but also in the utilities industry, in governments, in big engineering projects to identify maybe what are the relations between our employees and suppliers, between our customers and other third parties. What risks of non-compliance are there? Continuously track these relations to know where you should focus and proactively enter that ethics, compliance guarantees and follow those processes. There is one very interesting aspect that maybe as leaders you're not yet thinking about, the industries that are first considering when we come to governments in this space is public sector. And that is if every time more we're relying on digital transformation, on artificial intelligence and machine learning, you have a new responsibility. And that's ensuring to society that you're training your systems with the right data, you're protecting it, that you're setting the right objectives and outcome for that machine learning, for that intelligence, and the key element that we must never forget, local explainability. You must always be able to explain to your employee, to your customer, to a citizen, why you're taking a decision. Why did you promote someone? Why did you hire someone? Why did you increase a price? This is how we see a new, let's say, responsibility in governance through digital transformation. But if we move into the other aspects, how do we fight, let's say, the most pressing emergency, which is climate change, as Ludovic was addressing right now in Danone. So, Carlos, could you share with us how can technology help in this space?
Thank you very much, Mark. So what I'm going to try to do in the next 10 minutes is just tell you what is our experience with our customers, what are they doing now? And the first thing that I want to tell you is that probably they have announced a year to become carbon neutral. They have joined some associations. Of course, they are gathering information, sometimes even manually in Excel spreadsheets, because they have to report on all these new topics, ESG topics, on their annual financial reports. So all that is happening as we speak, and they report into the traditional standards, GRI, ISO, etc., etc. That's what they are doing as of today. Almost every company above 200, 300, 500 employees, let's say. And now they wanna go one step further. And we use with them this Horizon 3 thinking. We wanna imagine what they want to announce in 24 months. And do they want to announce something that is gonna be complex to achieve, that is gonna be impactful to achieve? That will also require some investments, and that's what we try to depict in that bubble view of the Horizon 3. And they can do many different things. So what I'm going to talk about is now Horizon 1 and 2, where to start, because there are many different ways to tackle the sustainability opportunity. The first one has to do, we can call it Sustainability 1.0, as one of the questions went in that direction. Am I compliant with the legislation? What I'm accountable for? So am I going to keep my license to operate? If I operate in the European Union, am I going to comply with all that new regulation? That's Sustainability 1.0. Some of our customers in parallel are also looking for the efficiencies. I am saving water. I am saving energy. I am also saving transportation if I'm opting in for local providers. So the profitability side of things. That's the Sustainability 2.0 approach. But there's another dimension that many of our customers also tackle in parallel, which is this sustainability, this access to Sustainability 3.0, in which I really understand which are the innovation opportunities and technologies that I can apply to really connect to the green consumer. That's to make sure that the desirability of my sustainability actions are aligned with what I do. So we heard from Danone today, from Ludovic, that some of the actions that I can take do not see a response in sales. So that's why this is a virtuous cycle. Whatever information I get from my consumers, it needs to go back to my operations information. So X data with O data, experience data with operationals data to see how one affects the other. Okay, so this Sustainability 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 are correlated, and that's why many of our customers are acting at the same time in the three dimensions. But to get those 3 dimensions, we have to get a world of data, a lot of data that we normally didn't gather. Okay, so what is happening is that we have so much new regulation. It is just amazing when we go with our customers. They are struggling to apply the new European taxonomy. They have to align all their activities to the new taxonomy, and the reality is that when you apply that taxonomy, you find out that there's a lot more regulation that you have to comply with. For example, JP was sharing with us that we operate in a green cloud. Okay. Now, when we are implementing the taxonomy, European taxonomy regulation at SAP, we understand that to be able to announce that to the market, we need to comply with much more regulations that we are not complying with yet. We're working on it. So this is not the only one. Also, Jose mentioned some of the requirements for all the financial market players. This is regulated under the Sustainability Finance Disclosure Regulation. All the corporations today report in the non-financial reporting directive, but this is going to be enlarged and improved with the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. I'm not gonna dig deeper into this, but there's so much more coming. And this is great news, because I think until a few years ago, this sustainability was about doing good, and that's why many companies have social programs, etc., etc. But now it's mainly about complying with regulation. That's why this is a tsunami that is coming, and that's why this wealth of data to be gathered is so big. Now, how do we do this? And in practical terms, how can we make sure that we gather Scope 1 emissions, Scope 2 emissions, Scope 3 emissions, which are very complicated, by the way, 15 different dimensions for Scope 3. Every time we look at reporting Scope 3, we understand that what companies are reporting is very partial. Then we also have to give details per product, which materials we use, which productions, and that is very required, because remember, in the new legislation, everything needs to be traceable, everything needs to be auditable, and I need to provide that information also product by product. Finally, all my financing needs, all my investment needs, I have to qualify as light green, deep green, or gray investments, and that will also affect how much I will be paying for my financing, etc., etc. So it is very complicated. So customers are also holding our hand to tell us, okay, SAP, you're the leader in financial information, and now you have systems also for sustainability information, and to put those two worlds together, which is where the rubber hits the road. João Paulo was talking about the green line, the top line, and the bottom line. And unless you put together your financial information with your sustainability information, you will end up with situations like you remove plastic caps and that doesn't translate into new sales, or you, for example, apply for a B Corp and that translates into zero effect into your consumers. So unless you really put together the financial indicators with the sustainability indicators, you will not be able to steer the direction of your company in line with what your consumers want. And now, the last dimension. We really need to understand what our consumers want. And for that, to understand what the customers of our customers want, every year we run survey for different industries, and very important to understand that it's just not a survey. It's a survey that's directly connected to the system, the operational systems of our customers. So everything that happens in the world of X data, experience data, is directly linked to the world of O data, operational data. And we have learned so much new stuff with these surveys, with these insights, with this research. For example, customers are willing to pay 15% more in green clothing, but only 5% more in food, and only 0% more in energy. And this is my last message. We are losing a window of opportunity. Which is that window of opportunity? Until 12 months ago, the customers were telling us that they were ready to pay a premium from green products and services. Now the mindset is changing. They are telling us, if you're using less energy, less packaging, less transportation, you're wasting less landfill, I expect your green products to be cheaper. So that's why it's so important to lead in the sustainability arena, because those that lead first will tackle the still existing sustainability premium and will be really ready to compete in a world where sustainable means cheaper and not only smart. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Carlos. To really meet our ESG performance goals, objectives, and of course, rating, the social element is absolutely essential. Let me focus here maybe on the top three social stakeholders we should be taking into account that SAP is focusing on. First and foremost, of course, our own employees. And are we creating, with those priorities I opened up with, really a workplace that is offering diversity, equity, and inclusion? So this is an absolute top priority within that sustainability objective to really be the most diverse and inclusive employer within our industry. We think now that we have well over 100,000 employees across many nationalities with very different age groups, generations, genders, and across many geographies. And we really need to transform the mindset of our managers and employees. And here technology can also play a great support to managers, in this case, like myself. I know now I have intelligent systems that can help me overcome biases I might not even have been aware of. So when I'm looking for a new team member, when I'm posting a job description, the system can tell me that maybe how I'm describing that job is in itself discriminatory. It's focusing maybe on a specific gender. I might not even be noticing this, and the system can tell me. It's important, if we want to create inclusion, that we can really bring this diverse workforce together, that they feel empowered, that they have a voice. So we need systems that allows them that real leadership access, that really sharing of ideas, and that they have that voice. And if we want to ensure equity, that all employees have access to opportunities, we also need a system that identifies that in our decisions as managers, maybe when we're doing compensations, promotions, the system is telling us, hey, the decisions you're taking individually or as a group do not reflect the values your brand, your corporation stands for. This is technology we're applying within SAP, but also supporting many of our customers in their deployment. Think about, for example, the case of Terex Corporation. In heavy machinery, in construction industry, maybe traditionally a more male-focused industry, their workforce. Now they're becoming really a leader in diversity and inclusion by having the support of systems that can guide them and support them towards these goals. But when you're thinking about transforming a workplace, of really supporting your workforce, a key element you must never forget is having open communication with all your teams. That's where we really play on employee experience. Having the technology that can reach out to employees, allow them constantly to share their concerns, the opportunities they're seeing, what they would like to share with the organization, with colleagues, with management. This was essential, for example, during the pandemic. Think about cases like Koç Holding in Turkey. When the pandemic hit and they wanted to reach out to 95,000 of their employees who were now stranded at home, needed change how they worked, we could help them send out a pulse and get 25,000 responses from their employees in just a few hours, and ensure they could take action, react, and really help overcome that concern, that anxiety their employees were experiencing. So having these channels, having the technology is essential. Another key social stakeholder group is, of course, youth and unemployed citizens who need new opportunities, new access. And all the leaders in this call, your organizations, have an incredible wealth of knowledge, a capacity to reskill this workforce, this youth, this unemployed workforce, and technology can really support here. SAP, leveraging our online training capabilities with an initiative called People to Work, we have already trained, reskilled over 400,000 unemployed people globally, with a huge impact on the opportunity they have to find a new job. And finally, you are also responsible not only for reaching out to your employees, to unemployed, give them an opportunity, but also to help other small corporations, startups who have a strong social commitment to succeed, to grow together with your organization. So here, for example, SAP in 2020 committed that by 2025, 5% of all our spend would be focused on companies that had a social commitment. And another 5% would focus on companies with an inclusive commitment. The important thing is that this rating, this identifying of these companies then goes onto our business network and can be shared and used by our customers. This is, for example, the case of IAG Insurance in Australia, that can now make sure that all the spend their employees are doing focuses first on local SMEs, those registered by women who have a clear focus on social objectives, on inclusiveness in their local community. So the spend of IAG through the network now helps these social entrepreneurs. So those are just 3 areas on how technology can support on really increasing the positive social impact of all your actions, of your business processes. So in closing out, we just wanted to share with you SAP's strong commitment to this transformation, this leadership in sustainability in our industry, but also how through our learning and experience, we want to take this technology to support organizations to make them more sustainable on environment, social, and governance aspects. And also, hopefully, we've responded to those key questions that INSEAD was raising that João Paulo opened up with. Use technology to understand what can you be responsible for, to what is the degree you having an impact, to understand to whom are you responsible, who are those stakeholders, how do we reach out and engage with them, and of course, at the end of the day, ultimately, who's responsible, who needs to take action, where can you influence. Thank you very much, and back to you, João Paulo.
Thank you, Mark. Maybe we'll wrap it up here also, conscious of the time. Now, this is just one last slide. Basically, even though a lot has been done, a lot still has to happen, right? So while, for example, in the Fortune 500, 47% of the workforce is female, the reality only 6% of the CEOs are women. Still more than 70%, right, of the ethnic minorities report some sort of harassment, or even 87% of the works are not, let's say, disabled, enabled, let's say, to the businesses. So there is a huge opportunity of business and of differentiation in our businesses if we follow this route. With that, thank you very much and open for questions.
Thank you very much to SAP and to the 3 speakers. It was very compelling. And while we wait for some questions from our audience, perhaps I kick off. João Paulo, you said in the beginning that SAP feels a responsibility to try to help their clients, right, to become more proactive and to a certain extent educate them on how they can do this journey. I thought that could be quite interesting if you could let us know how you bring this conversation with your clients, because that could actually help some of the people in the audience also to think and reflect on how they can bring this conversation to the boardroom. So that would be useful, I guess.
Thank you. So basically, in the areas of governance, we are, let's say, quite experienced because this is an area that we have been doing for many years, and we approach this topic with the CFOs and the boards quite frequently. And since the last maybe 12 months or more, we have introduced a Climate 21 initiative where we go to the top customers that we have, also with our partners. For example, we have an important partner, which is EY, that collaborates significantly in our sustainability practice, for example. And together we approach these companies to either implement what we have or co-develop or co-innovate with customers in this area. And this is spreading, In fact, we are now building with help of Mark and Carlos, let's say board ESG innovation center that we are just now deploying in Madrid, that will also be able to serve the region as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. May I wonder if you believe it is important that the remuneration policies include metrics related to ESG. So usually the remuneration, there are certain KPIs, right? What is your thought in regards to include ESG KPIs in order to develop the ESG agenda within a company? For those, as one of your questions was, who's responsible? So once you identify who is responsible, would you think that having ESG KPIs for in the remuneration, variable remuneration, obviously would make sense?
So I believe some of these KPIs will be distributed to different members in the company. In fact, I will give an example. Just this year, while I was running the salary cycle of increases, right? So the HR team brought to my attention, precisely triggered by the system. Good job. You are going, let's say, 3% above on females versus males. But for example, there was one case of a male that was too low. So the HR had, let's say, the mandate of paying attention, let's say, with the systems alerts on these areas. So I'm pretty sure that we will be distributing some of these KPIs to the relevant teams in the companies so that at the end of the day, the balance exists in the company.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience? I need to ask you to type them because, as I explained, we do not have the possibility of putting you on speaker. So I will give you some more seconds to see if we've got any question. And of course, if anyone of the other speakers also has a question, it's absolutely no problem to raise them. Okay, so if we have no questions at this point, I think we are going to move on for our last speaker, António Neto da Silva, who is a member of the International Directors Network of INSEAD, the CEO of the Instituto de Formação Bancária, and professor on modern corporate governance for financial institutions and on sustainable development. So I hand over now to you so you can share with us the announcement you have. Thank you, António. I think you are on mute, António.
Well, thank you. I am now on. I would like to start by saying that this announcement is made on behalf of Susana Gomes-Smith, António Martins da Costa, José Teotónio, and myself. Actually, the four of us, we are in the administrative process to launching Chapter 0 Portugal. As you probably know, Chapter 0 are developed in the context of the Climate Governance Initiative, a project developed in collaboration with the World Economic Forum that aims to enable directors and non-executive directors to build their understanding of climate change so that they can play a proactive role in the boardroom in stewarding their company's climate transition strategies. The main challenge is that even for directors who are relatively literate about the science and macroeconomics of climate change, there is simply no ready how-to manual that can guide them through the practicalities of embedding this in routine board practice. It requires a fundamentally interdisciplinary approach that breaks new ground, and although much has been said at high level about what ought to be done, there is nothing that walks non-executive directors through how, in practical terms, they should set about actually doing it. So, following an extensive consultation led by the World Economic Forum over more than 2 years, the World Economic Forum launched a set of comprehensive and stretching principles in January 2019 at Davos, and have been actively reaching out to directors in key markets to set up local chapters to take the idea into the field. Chapters are groups of board directors created around the world to form networks that will lead efforts to bring directors together with each other, as well as with subject matter experts, including investors and other stakeholders, in workshops, training courses, and so on, while also generating and disseminating written guidance that can be shared widely across borders. The World Economic Forum goal is, at a minimum, to establish a national chapter in all G20 countries, and it has put together a central web-based platform that links to the country chapters and enables sharing of resources and communication between chapters and their members. Those chapters are named Chapter Zero and are set up as NGOs, non-profit-like organizations, and entrepreneurial-minded organizations. Our vision in Portugal is to leverage on the European Union leadership in the fight against climate change to help heal our planet. We will be a non-profit organization enabling directors across boardrooms in Portugal to engage effectively in a strategic debate about the climate challenge for their businesses and how they will contribute to achieving the European Union's target of net zero emissions. As soon as the chapter is created, we will come back to you, if you allow us, with more information to proceed in a deeply cooperative way, inviting you to become members. Thank you, Susana.
Thank you, Antonio. And in advance, we look forward for everyone to support Chapter Zero in Portugal. And we thought this audience would be the adequate audience to make this announcement. Before we wrap up, I just want to share a comment that I've only had the opportunity to share now, and it is from Caitlin from PLMJ, and actually to you, Ludovic, about the new Danone's logo. So she actually thought when she saw it that the new logo is looking to the right, while the previous one is looking to the left. And what comes to her mind is that this reflects that Danone is looking to the future, exactly what you are aligned with what you are doing. So she congratulates you for the alignment of your logo with your strategy. I'd like to once again thank to all our speakers today. I think there's been fascinating, and I certainly enjoyed very much our session. I trust you all did too. Thank you as well for the brave ones to bring comments and questions. Carlos Morisca, Celina Abcacis Moedas, Beatriz Araújo, Catarina Soares Cunha, Ron Franken, and Caitlin. I must say that today we can see, and given that we are speaking about social and someone spoke about diversity, that the ladies have been less shy than the men in the audience. So I was very pleased to make this final remark. And thank you, PLMJ, for having us here today. And I'd like to wish you all a very good evening, and let's be all even more ESG mindful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.